please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Open Public Meetings Act statement. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Augusta, Branchville, and Sussex post offices, and notice sent to the New Jersey Herald, the Star Ledger, and the clerk of the boroughs of Branchville and Sussex, and the townships of Frankfort, Lafayette, and Wantage. Mission statement. High Point Regional High School, in partnership with staff, family, and community, is dedicated to the quest for individual excellence. By fostering high standards of achievement, we prepare students to become responsible and productive members of a diverse society. If I could have a roll call.
Deborah Anderson.
Here.
Spencer Arnold.
Here.
Thomas Ancliffe.
Here.
Patricia Nugent.
Here.
Joseph Carrazza. I thought he was here. Okay. Leanne Smith.
Here.
Wayne Dunn.
Here.
Gail Tadona. Dr. Kehoe.
Present.
We do have a quorum, and I understand that some conflicted members will most likely be joining us at 6 p.m., but we do have a quorum, President Kehoe.
Thank you. Executive session. A motion will be made that the High Point Regional High School Board of Education enter into executive session to provide an update on legal, personnel, and negotiations items, which are exempt from public participation pursuant to the New Jersey Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act. Any discussions held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public when appropriate. Minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. The board will reconvene in public session virtually at the conclusion of the executive session. It is not anticipated that any action will be taken. With that, do I have a motion to go to executive session?
I'll make a motion to go to executive session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Seeing nobody opposed, I now move to executive
Okay, you are live now.
Thank
Dan,
you.
can you please send an Evite to Seamus?
Will do.
Okay, we're live now. The next item of business is unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? Seeing no unfinished business, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Tina?
So presented to the board tonight are the regular meeting minutes for October 27th, 2020, and also the executive session minutes from October 27th, 2020.
I move to approve those.
Second.
Roll call?
Who was the second?
Second.
Patty.
Thank you.
No, they were like not a good time, but like they changed it.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes. No.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Antcliffe,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe.
I abstain.
Excuse me, sir.
I abstain.
Abstain. Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay. The next is public comments. We're going to do agenda items only. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, we will open the public comments for agenda items only at this time. Each speaker should state his or her name and address. There'll be 3 minutes to address the board, which will be timed by the president or his designee. We will limit this section to no longer than 45 minutes. Please be respectful and mindful that your comments are being recorded. At this point, I'll check to see if we have any public comments submitted. We have no public comments submitted at this time. We do have another public comment section at the end, so I'm going to move forward with this. And if any public comments come back at a later point, we can address it. The next section is presentations. The first presentation is Student Council. Aliza Lavore, is she present?
As of now, I don't see anyone in the waiting room or anything like that.
Okay, then we'll move on, and if she comes in later, we'll see if we can still get her time. The HPEA, Miss Mancuso, would you be so kind?
Yes, welcome everybody, and Dr. Kehoe, nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Great. Tough times, guys. You know how it is. We received Dr. Ripley's message as to what the board and himself has decided to wait on closings and whatnot and certain criteria. I just got off a Sussex County Educators Association Executive Committee meeting, and we heard that all the superintendents of Sussex County met and that they took the position together not to make a decision till something happens. That's a real concern for all of us as far as a staff and student body, as far as planning. You know, we're going into holidays and whatnot, and everybody needs to plan. And not that we can't go on a dime, go remote, because we can. We're prepared. But as a teachers union president, we're concerned for health and safety as well as you guys are. And it's just disheartening to understand that the numbers are going up, and how far do we have to wait to close? And I understand everybody wants to wait and hold their breath, but we might be in a bubble in Sussex County, but it's all around us. It's going to happen at some point, and what constitutes a closure. So we appreciate the communication as far as that is concerned. We also, as the president of the association, we are forming a health and safety committee, which will be trained through NJEA, and we're setting up meetings with them to establish what our criteria is, to be able to reach out to the administration. So once our committee is established, to be able to say, we'll meet on a monthly basis to be able to ensure that we're all in agreement to what is safe and what's not safe and what needs to be addressed, concerns. Nothing that we're not experts in this field. We just all want to be ensured that we are safe and ready to move forward. As far as, and it'll be guided, the Public Employees Occupation Safety and Health Department, which NGA and New Jersey's Department of Health Department certifies. So we won't be speaking outside of our hat, but we'll have real issues to be able to address and concerns and work as a community, with the administration to say, we need this addressed and that addressed. So that's what we're working as far as a team is concerned. I'm so glad that we got the first marking period under our belts. Thanks to the administration and thanks to, this is tough. I don't have to tell you, but it's tough. We're dragging those kids along and we're going through the muck and we're getting it done. So we would like to have more communication as far as, outside of emails to, we're in the building to meet and say, this is what's going on. This is what we hear. And what do you think about it? I can't stand Google this and Google that. We're here in the building. Let's talk. Let's talk as one amongst each other and say, what you think's going on? What you think we should do? Instead of having a survey, oh, we had 25 said this and 35 said that, we're done. I've been in 3 Zoom meetings today. and this is torture. I wanted to meet with you folks because this is important, but it's torture. That I can't imagine growing up today and having to sit in front of a meeting and be able to talk. It's difficult. But as far as the teachers are concerned, they just want to know what contact tracing is going on so we can, dispel the rumors. What's the secondary contact tracing? I had to learn myself, and thank God for one of the administrators, Lindsay. I asked her, I said, so, who gets notified? It's real difficult because it's unclear, and it just changed today. The CDC changed today for 10 minutes. It went from 15 minutes to 10 minutes. Does anybody know that? Did we all get an alert? No. So everything's hearsay. So communication is the utmost of importance. And that's all what I had to say as far as what the teachers have been saying to me every day. And I try to get around to see everybody, and it's hard because we don't see each other anymore. We have these masks on. I don't even know, who I walk past half my staff members like, oh my God, I didn't even say hello to this one because you can't, we're all masks. It's like Halloween every day. And it's tough on all of us. It's tough on the administrators. It's tough on the teachers and the students. God bless them. I have my own children, and I don't know how we're going to get through this, but I think we can get through this. As we need communication. That's all I ask. And that's all the teachers are asking. They want to know, we're going into the holiday. Parents want to know, what do we do? You gotta, everything's on yourself, self-quarantine. So it's tough. Being in a position of power today is very difficult. So communication's the utmost, and that's what we're asking for. And that's all I have to say. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mancuso. Thank you for all your efforts. We can move on. The principal's reports and athletics, Mr. Talamay.
Thank you, Dr. Kehoe. Good evening, everyone. I would like to echo about communication to what Ms. Cuso said. We work on that very, very hard. So thank you, Ms. Mancuso, for your communication and your efforts with the teachers. We do have a staff meeting coming up on Wednesday. That unfortunately will be a large Google Meet. And the reason why it would be is because Wednesday's our usual staff meeting day. We are on a virtual schedule. And rather than adjust everybody's schedule who has adopted around our staff meeting schedules, we left it on Wednesday. But because of everybody's virtual schedule and ability to teach from home or in the building, we left it as a virtual meeting versus a face-to-face meeting, and hope for more in the future. A couple of quick things I just wanted to go over for the building updates. Fresh, hot off the press, we had our students of the marking period. Look for the flip grid that's going to be coming out like we did in the springtime for the 3rd and 4th marking period. That's a really important aspect of it because we want to make sure that our students are recognized on a consistent basis. So for those that are not familiar with the students of the marking period, that is something that is nominated by the teachers, by each department. It's probably one of the things that's most debated and discussed amongst the teachers, and they take a lot of pride in that nomination process overall. So we have the principal student of the marking period is Logan Benner. Business student of the marking period, Jason Mahabir. English is Danielle Faltraco. Health and physical education, Haley Rossi. History is Brianna Stigler. Math is Samantha Perez. Performing arts is Ryan Colarusso. Science is Joseph Pauls. Technological studies is Leah Ruvo. Visual arts is Angelina DeRosimo. And world language is Olivia Worthington. So congratulations to those students. Like I said, we'll be doing a flip grid that'll be coming out probably, watch your Twitter accounts probably tomorrow or the next day. And that's again what we did in the spring, and that was a nice thing for the teachers to get a chance to talk for a couple seconds, couple minutes about those students. Also hot off the press is for those that aren't familiar, the Center for Prevention and Counseling in Newton is a phenomenal organization. They've been working in our county for over 30 years. They work very closely with a lot of the schools and agencies, not only providing training and professional development, providing resources for our parents, and also grant opportunities as well. So every year they do What's Your Anti-Drug contest, and you may have seen this in the Herald recently. And I am proud to say that we had several students that participated and were recognized in that. So we have Joelle Morales, Lena Olet, Danielle Faltraco again, so she was 2 for 2 in her awards. Jean Marie Zaccoli and Ty Lombardi are all students that recognized. And it was either a piece of literature, a poem, a piece of artwork, or a PSA, which is a public service announcements through our media tech program. Those are really the 3 categories that you had. Usually the contest has a lot more ability to recognize. They actually do like a town hall in the later part of the winter and spring. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it this year, but hopefully we have a chance to do that as well. Continue on, we have the Kodachrome, as I said about last month, was postponed, and that is rescheduled for December 11th, 12th, and 13th. That will be a live stream only event. We're hopeful that is able to maintain. The students are very much working hard to make that come to fruition. And we know how much that is important for them and those students. And obviously we know Mrs. Riccardi is second to none in her leadership in that department. As Ms. Mancuso said, the first marking period has ended already. Grades will be posting very soon. And the middle of the second marking period is December 14th. And realize why I highlight that is because November goes very quickly, and then we're into December soon after that, and that will be quickly upon us. We met today about 8th grade tours, and we have a tentative plan for our virtual rendition of 8th grade tours. Usually our 8th grade tours would happen during this week, where 8th graders come on up, like I reported on last month, but we're doing a virtual, more of like a campus tour. So stay tuned for that, working with, again, the media tech program and the social media ambassador students as well. Our 8th grade open house was tentatively scheduled for January 7th. We're going to postpone that to later in January, which will change our scheduling timelines a little bit. But we have to make some adjustments so we can do that virtually and figure out a format for that if we're not able to come in the building for a large format, because we do have several hundred parents and 8th graders in the building for that time period. And finally, I'd like to thank the board for giving the opportunity to be part of the National Association for Secondary School Principals Student Leadership Committee. That's an honor to be able to represent High Point on that. And we have our first virtual national conference on Friday. Not quite the way I quite anticipated it being, But we have a principal panel that we're talking about student voice. And I have to do a panel for that. So I'm looking forward to that again. Not the way I would expect it to be, but we'll adjust as we all are doing in our own lives. We'll adjust and do that. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be part of that committee. And I'd just like to end and say before I go to athletics it is the most wonderful time of the year. There's a lot of negativity and there's a lot of things that can bring us down. And I'm the first one to admit that is easy for it to happen. When we look around the world that we have today, there's a lot of things that are out of our control. But there's also a lot of positive moments. Seeing students in the building, seeing the staff busting their humps, working so hard for our district, for our community, for our students. There is a lot to be thankful for as well. So as we get into this Thanksgiving season, I just wanted to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving and realize that we do have a lot to be thankful for. Our staff is continuing to do Thanksgiving baskets and gifts for our community. Our food pantry is feeding an unbelievable amount of people. We continue to work towards all types of events for the community throughout that. So there is always a silver lining, even though sometimes it doesn't look so bright. Dr. Keough, if it's okay, I'll go on to athletics.
If you would, please.
So our athletic report from our athletic director, Mr. Dexter. Soccer finished up yesterday. Boys soccer, I should say, finished up yesterday with a tough state loss to Mountain Lakes in a 4-2 game over at Frankfort Park. I'd like to recognize Frankfort Park for giving us the ability to utilize their fields as they have in the past. We've had a lot of rain in a short amount of time, which made our field not really safe to play for the last couple of days. So we had to move over to that. But the boys played tough. They finished the season 7-6 after that tough loss. They're young. They're going to be back and ready to go. Girls soccer, for those of you that may have a special interest in that, Mr. Dunn, give me a thumbs up. I'll see you tomorrow. It's going to be cold, Mr. Dunn, so I think we better adjust one for tomorrow. They're 11-0-1, and the girls have won the league title. They are rocking and rolling, playing phenomenal. They're the number 2 seed, and they play Madison tomorrow. I believe it's a 2:00 game. Mr. Dunn, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's 2:00.
Yep.
And that will also be at Frankfort Park. So we're looking forward to that game again. We'd like to be able to play on our home field, but just right now, the safety of the athletes is most important with the rain that we've had, and obviously haven't had any sun, it feels like, for about 4 days. So we're going to be there, and we'll look forward to that and a victory for them. Girls tennis finished 6-3. They also qualified for the state tournament. They lost to a very tough opponent in Sparta. Football is currently 2-4. Supposed to play Sussex Tech on Friday. Sussex Tech has a situation going on with their football team and is not going to be able to play. So we're currently looking for a new opponent for Friday. And then we have a Thanksgiving Eve game against Wallkill Valley next week as well. Field hockey finished 2-8-1. They also qualified for the state tournament and lost to a tough Jefferson team 2-0. They are very young as well, and Coach Reynolds will have them back ready to go for next year. Boys and girls cross country. Another parent, Mr. Carrazza, there you are. Fantastic season as well. Boys cross country finished 5-0. They won the league title for the 7th straight season. Had to make sure that wasn't a misprint, but that's not a misprint. It's unbelievable run for Coach Sunda. Girls cross country finished 5-0 and won the league title for the 3rd time in 5 years. So Coach Sunda, kudos to her. Coach Carter as well. Coach Sunda also achieved her 150th win in the last couple of weeks as well. So kudos to her and the program that she runs every single day. Roman Citro finished 4th in the sectional race, and Ava Belgium finished 19th in the sectional race. They had a great showing over at Garrett Mountain as well this weekend. Winter sports update. Keep your fingers crossed. The NJSA is telling us we have an update coming by November 20th, hopefully sooner than later, in terms of what that will look like. Everybody's guess is as good as ours as what that could look like, but they're holding off to see their final guidelines for that. Most likely probably going to be very similar to what they did in the fall. Nick Boyle donated money to our football team, as on the agenda tonight, so they could purchase cleats, about $4,400 of donations. So thank you to Nick, and also his representation for High Point and his representation in the community. Unfortunately, also prayers for Nick, as he has suffered a pretty serious injury over the weekend. So if you could keep him in your thoughts and prayers, that would be very much appreciated. I'm sure he would appreciate that as well. Pello and Associates also donated 10 face masks for the field hockey team to wear on penalty corners. For those of you, and I'm looking on the screen, any field hockey coaches, parents, right? So I know you know what that looks like, right? Old parent. No, Deb, all good, all good. So changed years ago to wearing face masks as a requirement. The state recently reversed that, and it's no longer required, which I thought was very bizarre. But anyway, you can do that on corners, as the corners, for those who didn't watch, is one of the most chance, I guess, of confrontation and getting hit. So as for the corners, you're able to put those on. So thank you to Pello and Associates for their donation of those face masks. And last but certainly not least, our athletes of the month in November: Cassandra Conklin for field hockey and Tanner Okerson for boys soccer. Any questions?
John, I just have a question and a compliment, I guess, how we coordinate with Frankfurt Township and their park, that we're able to make use of their recreation fields. I think that's awesome. I'm very happy that that's able to be done. If you want to speak to that, I think that's
Yeah, absolutely. So the fantastic partnership. We've been doing it for many years as a backup. Frankfurt Township, we're talking about the Frankfurt Park, the Green Acres, right past Space Farms. For those that are not familiar, it's a beautiful facility. We've worked with Mr. Carney, Mr. Chris Carney, the mayor for Frankfurt, as well as Miss Brady in this situation to help us out. It was a short situation. We had a lot of rain on Sunday night, and we had to make a quick decision as to whether or not we would be able to play on our field on Monday. And unfortunately, it didn't come to fruition. So they were great, fantastic. Kudos to our grounds crew, because our grounds crew coordinated with them and went over and make sure the field was marked, corners pinned, goals set up and lined. And it was like blink of an eye, and it was good to go. So kudos to Mr. Jacobus, Mr. Goodowd, and Mr. Drew Jr. for helping out and making sure that gets done as well. So I'd like to publicly recognize Frankfurt Township Recreation Committee for being able to support High Point and its student athletes continuously for many, many years.
it's impressive. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Talbot, and thank you for congratulations on all your efforts to keep the school open during all these weeks. It's a monumental task you and the administration are doing, so congratulations.
Thank you, Dr.
I'm going to take the liberty to go out of order here, and we did get a public comment I'm going to read now rather than later, because I think it's appropriate. It's from Faith Healy. It said, as a parent of a freshman, I want to take a moment to thank the teachers, staff, administration, and the Board of Ed for doing a remarkable job during this difficult time and continually keeping us informed. So congratulations, Mr. Talbot. With that, I'm going to move on to the highlight of the curriculum and instruction. Mr. Campbell, all yours.
I am. Let's see here. Share screen. Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes.
We can.
All right, fantastic. Congratulations to Mr. Talbot on his involvement in the National Principals Organization. And I know he'd much rather be in Washington, D.C. to participate in that, but it is great to see his involvement and representing the school. So congrats to him on that. Congratulations to our 14 newly appointed social media ambassadors. Mr. Fenlon runs a tremendous program, and these students do a great job sharing with the community the best and most exciting things that are happening at our school. Some of them are jumping for joy. They're so excited. We hear a lot about the downside of social media, but to see these young men and young women identifying what they think is best and presenting it to our community is really, it's awesome. So get on Twitter or Facebook or the Insta and check us out. Equally as heartfelt and full of warmth, CUSAC monitoring. We've been meeting and we've been working, and on the agenda this evening for the board's consideration is our self-assessment. We first score ourselves in all 5 areas that CUSAC monitors. We ask the board to authorize our self-assessment, and we upload that to the board in mid-December. And we have a date now for our audit, which will be February 26th. We were hoping for the 29th, but that didn't happen. So just kidding. It'll be the 26th. This is our self-assessment. I want to thank our staff, our administration, our teachers, our administrative assistants. We are meticulously organized and we are fully compliant, and we have documented that in our self-assessment. So our score at this point is that we are fully compliant with all aspects of the audit, and that's what we're presenting to the board tonight for consideration. And after it is acted on tonight, we'll present that. So that's an update on CUSAC. As was mentioned, Dr. Ripley shared a letter with the staff yesterday, and today he sent a letter out to the entire community. If we need to pivot and pivot quickly to a virtual scenario, we are fully prepared. In the communications that went out, we explained that we would continue to use our existing schedule so that the switch from in-person to remote would be as seamless as possible. We did get a lot of input from teachers. We met numerous times with groups of staff members, and we developed a full-time remote schedule that we will utilize if we have to go virtual for any considerable amount of time. We will transition to this with a little bit of a later start time, some academic support built in, and a schedule that's more better suited for a long-term remote situation should that need arise. The last 4 days of the first marking period, October 29th and 30th, and November 2nd and 3rd, we suspended the afternoon classes and students had an alternative assignment. First, on October 29th and 30th, we had in-person staff meetings. It's rare that we get this long into the school year and have so few moments together, but it was nice to all be in the auditorium. If staff had a particular need or an inclination, they were allowed to participate from their classrooms. But to be in one room with 60 or 70 members of the staff, it felt different because we were spread out in a large auditorium. But we are doing our best to have those moments, when we can. On Monday and Tuesday that following week, appropriately timed on the eve of our election, students read an essay, watched videos, and they wrote responses about racial justice, voting, citizenship. The late Congressman and great civil rights leader John Lewis passed away in July. Prior to his death, he penned a short but powerful essay about the power of the individual to do good. He asked that essay be published posthumously in the New York Times, and they reciprocated. And it's a really powerful, meaningful, pertinent essay, and our student body read it and they answered several questions about that essay. One question was, on the eve of election, what can our leaders do to make us a more respectful nation? And Mia Sibaka talked about the need for our leaders to identify or to recognize all Americans of all races, gender identity, sexuality, social class, culture, and that if we show love and respect to all, that we'll be united. We asked students to weigh in on something that a lot of our teachers are promoting in their classrooms. I just came from my parents' house for dinner, so I'm an expert in this, how to have difficult conversations with people when you disagree. It was quite entertaining. My adrenaline was up, but it was a respectful disagreement about a political matter. Nonetheless, Matt Frieda, weighed in here. And Matt spoke about the fact that parents are the primary teachers and need to teach tolerance and respect, and that there are two sides to every coin. And really, we have to listen to one another. And I really think our staff does embrace the challenge of getting young people to have tough conversations and learn how to do that, which is so important. Some of the questions we asked were about a variety of topics. Senior Noah Francois talked about social media. It's good, but there's a lot of misinformation. And two of our students weighed in on, should the voting age be lowered to 17? Senior Juliana said, not so much. And young sophomore Wyatt Klimas said, yeah, I think we're ready. These are just a handful of examples. We got thousands of responses to a variety of questions. And I don't mean to sound too Pollyanna-ish, but as Mr. Talamay said, these are challenging times. And when you spend a lot of time with these young people, you remain optimistic and confident in the promise of tomorrow. And believe it or not, that is my presentation. And those of you that went to use the restroom and are now back, you better hurry up because we're all done. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
For the CUSAC self-assessment,
Yes.
were you all using the same? Because I know there's something strange with CUSAC with the years that are being used for like testing and stuff. Were you using that same time span?
So the one part of the assessment is we grade ourselves instruction and program. 60% of the 100 points in that critical area is graduation rate, attendance, assessment scores, and I believe it's those three. And the state pre-populates that for us. So the 100% on our self-assessment is our evaluation on being fully compliant with the other 40%. But to perhaps the crux of your question, we are being audited in 2021 as a look back at 2019-20. Well, 19-20 was not a normal year. So, for example, the primary component of the assessment is state assessment scores. They will be using the assessment scores from the previous year, 18-19. Likewise, attendance scores. Our attendance was higher last year, but yet they'll go to 18-19. So it's a bit frustrating because typically they lay out the playing field for you a couple years in advance. The playing field here obviously changed kind of abruptly, but essentially spring of 1920 was a push, and they fall back to data from the spring of 18-19.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
No other questions? Thank you, Mr. Campbell, for your informative and almost eloquent presentation.
Thanks.
Other business. We'll move on to discussion about reopening. Dr. Ripley?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to give an update to the board and to the community regarding where we're at right now. I did send a thorough, we try to communicate because there are so many questions and we all have so many questions. And we are in constant communication with the Department of Health. We speak with them every single day. And it's a tremendous challenge. I think that they are doing a phenomenal job. And I think that their staffing level is likely insufficient to meet the demands of a COVID pandemic. Nevertheless, they've been tremendously helpful with us. And so I sent out a letter to all the staff yesterday. Today, we sent that to all parents, all students, and we posted it on our webpage and we posted on our social media outlets. So what we're trying to communicate is, all right, where are we now? What's happening? We know that there is a strong will to remain open if possible. And so what we do is we balance what some perceive as competing interests. They're not. Our priority is always the health and well-being of our students and our staff. And the data that we have is reflective of the fact that people are not getting sick at school. Those who are contracting and becoming COVID positive are getting that outside of their school interaction. So we know that the school is safe. And we've done a tremendous job of setting up a situation where we can make that statement. And the superintendents in the county have all worked diligently to make sure, and the staffs and the administrations have worked to make sure that their priority is staff and student health and well-being. But we also talk about the fact that if we're talking about student health and well-being and staff health and well-being, we also have to recognize that there is mental health and mental well-being. And that's a component of this horror that we're all enduring. And so in communicating that, we recognize that there are increasing numbers at this time. Our region is referred to as the Northwest region, and that's inclusive of Warren, Sussex, and Passaic County. all of Passaic County, not just the one section of Passaic County. So if numbers are increasing in Patterson, but not necessarily in Beamerville, we're linked by the state's determination of what regions are and how they're defined. And so we are seeing a significant increase. As a matter of fact, in the last week or so, last 2 weeks, the Northwest region has the highest increase rate. And so if you're aware, there's a color coordinated component, green being low risk, yellow being moderate risk. I think I may have the adjectives wrong, but you get the sense. Orange being higher risk and red being highest risk. And so that's dependent upon the number of cases over a 7-period average per day over a 7-day period. And that data is a week behind. And so we met with the Sussex County Department of Health epidemiologist last Friday, and it was not an encouraging data discussion. And so technically, we're not going to hear about the 7-week look back, which ended on Friday the 13th, until Friday the 20th, this coming Friday. And it is anticipated that when we get those numbers, we will enter into what's referred to as orange. Now, there's no mandate by the state that schools must go fully virtual when we reach orange. But what it does is it makes the contact tracing requirements far more stringent, even to the point where it will become a profound challenge to remain hybrid as we currently are. However, because we believe that for the physical and mental health of students and staff is best to maintain our hybrid construct, it is our hope to remain hybrid as long as possible. We will only close if it becomes evident that we can no longer sustain the orange designation, with the contact tracing being that which it likely will be. The only time that the state mandates that we will close is if we enter red. Today I was in a meeting where I heard someone state that we are likely to enter red in the coming weeks. If you recall, in March, I think it was in April, once we went to orange, we then went to red 1 or 2 weeks later, and we were in orange or red for 9 consecutive weeks, then went into yellow. So the orange preceded the red, which I believe was last April. And so many anticipate us entering the red, which would require we close. However, we believe, because it is in the best interest of all, that we remain hybrid for now. Even if it does go to orange, we're going to try to at least get through Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving. Now that brings up the next point. Many districts are closing for 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. The epidemiologist suggested that one should self-quarantine for 14 days if they leave the state for Thanksgiving, if they have a Thanksgiving gathering that exceeds 10 individuals, or if they have someone from out of state enter their home for Thanksgiving. Now that presents some profound challenges, and likely would be a challenge for us to be able to staff and have students on site. I'm not suggesting that it's definitive that we will close for the 14 days following Thanksgiving. I'm just giving you an update that many schools have discussed that. Many schools have already done so. Hapakong went on all virtual beginning yesterday, I believe. I believe other schools are on the cusp of having to do that. I know that Mount Olive just stipulated that beginning Monday, they are all virtual through, I think, the 18th-ish of January. The rationale being that with the inability to control gatherings throughout the holidays, it is, in their perception, in the best interest to remain virtual through that time. And then certainly an argument can be made for that. I'm not arguing against it. I'm not arguing for it. I'm just presenting what others are doing. And finally, the letters that we sent out today recognize all of those possibilities, and yet we are still trying to maintain being open as long as possible. But again, that any one of those eventualities could cause a closure at any point. Finally, should a district realize 2 unrelated positive COVID cases for either a staff member or a student, that is what constitutes what is referred to or is defined as an outbreak and would require we close for 14 days. And so that could also force us to close at any moment. And so this is the tenuous nature. As I said today, it's like the sword of Damocles hanging over us. It could come down at any second. It's imminent or not. And so we're hopeful to be able to provide as normal an experience for our kids as possible and get through at least extracurricular activities for the fall and get through Wednesday, the 25th, and then have a discussion as to whether it becomes necessary to close after that. And because we recognize that, look, our focus is social emotional learning. What better opportunities for social emotional learning for our kids than extracurricular activities? So that is my hope and expectation to get through the 25th. That's where we're at. All of which was contained in the documentation that was sent out to all stakeholder groups yesterday and today.
Which one?
All that information and links were provided to possible schedules, possible dates, and how to manage through the CDC directives of what to do.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the action items. Curriculum instruction and technology. Ms. Smith?
Yes. Okay. So we are, as the board want to recognize items 1, 2, and 3. The faculty attendance rate for October was 97.6%. The student attendance rate for October was 96.5%. And the suspension report as attached. I'm going to move items 4, 5, 6, and 7 all together. Number 4, it is recommended by the superintendent that the board approve the HIB report for October 27th through November 17th as attached. It is recommended that the board approve or recognizes there are no curricular field trips at this time. It is recommended that the board approve the PD activities, professional development activities as listed on the attached roster, and the board approve the NJ CUSAC district performance review school year attachment for 2020-2021, attachment A7. I make a motion seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Second.
Okay. All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Anderson?
You're muted.
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Ancliffe?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe?
Yes.
Ms. Tadona?
Yes.
All carried.
Thank you.
We'll move on to personnel. Mr. Dona.
I'm going to move the one item. It's recommended by the superintendent that the board approves Jennifer Smalley as a substitute teacher for the 2020-2021 school year. Make a motion, seek a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Ancliffe?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes.
motion carries.
If you're done, we're going to move on to extracurricular. Mr. Arnold?
Sure. So I'm going to move items 1, 2, and 3 together. Item 1 is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approves the individuals listed below as volunteers for the fall play and spring musical during the 2021 school year. They have already been cleared by High Point's Director of Safety and Security, Christine Carnes. Sorry about that. Lisa Schmidt and Peter Schmidt. Item number 2, it is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approves the following extracurricular appointments for the 2021 school year. Pending receipt of all required paperwork, head girls basketball coach Lawrence Gomez, assistant boys basketball coach Seamus Campbell at the compensation shown. And item number 3, it is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approves the establishment of a virtual chess club with Catherine Goodman as the volunteer advisor for the 2021 school year. Make a motion seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Cool. Good luck with chess club. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Mr. Ancliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
all motions carry.
All right. We will move on to policy. Ms. Tadona?
Surprisingly, I only have one this month. Moving item number 1, it's recommended by the superintendent that the board approves the second reading of the following new policies and regulations. In attachment D1.A, we have policy 1648.03, the restart and recovery full-time remote instruction. Attachment D1.B is policy 5330.05, seizure action plan, and its regulation 5330.05, seizure action plan. And then attachment D1.D, policy 6470.01, electronic funds transfer and claimant certification, and the matching regulation of electronic funds transfer and claimant certification. Making a motion seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Ancliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe,
Yes.
motion carried.
The next action item is negotiations. The HPEA contract is up at the end of the year. We would normally start contract negotiations at the beginning of this year, but at the request of the HPEA, we're holding off the start of the negotiations. So there's no items to report for negotiations. Next item, building and grounds. Ms. Nugent?
I'd like to move item 1. It is recommended that the Board of Education allow Sparta Ecumenical Food Pantry to store and distribute prepared packaged Thanksgiving meals to members of our community who are in need on November 24th, 2020, from 3 to 5:30 p.m. As this will benefit our district's families, we are waiving any fees associated with the use of the building. I'm making a motion and seeking a second.
Second.
Discussion?
Do we know if there's a need for donations for those Thanksgiving dinners?
For those dinners in particular, no, that group has it very well covered, and they have everything organized very well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm glad we can help
It's
out.
just for food storage. I guess my concern is that how many people will be involved? Are they just using our extensive refrigerator and freezer facilities to store their food, or is there going to be people involved with this?
They will only be using our walk-in refrigerator, and we've actually been in contact with the Department of Health to make sure that we follow all safety precautions that are necessary so that we can support the food pantry while still making sure that we follow all regulations so we keep everybody safe. If there's a case where the school, we have a closure, a few of us have volunteered to help out so that we will not have any students in the building. It will just be adults.
Excellent. I just want to make sure they'll be able to use it no matter what. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Thank you. Roll call vote?
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Arnold, I'm sorry. Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Fran yelled at me. Ms. Dodona?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Ancliffe?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe?
Yes.
Motion carries. My apologies, Mr. Arnold.
Moving on, the next action item is finance. Mr. Dunn?
Certainly. In finance, I'd like to move items 1 through 5 together. Item 1 is a recommendation to accept the report of the Board Secretary Business Administrator for the month of October 2020. Item 2 is a recommendation to accept the report of the Treasurer for the month of October 2020. Item 3 is a recommendation to approve the report of transfers and minimum expense transfer report for the month of October 2020. Item 4 is a recommendation to approve for payment the attached schedule of audited bills dated November 17th, 2020. And item 5 is a recommendation that the board accepts the adult education agency account, athletic account, cafeteria account, principals, petty cash account, scholarship account, school store account, and student activities account for the month of October 2020. I make that motion seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion on those items 1 through 5? If none, may I have the roll call?
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Ancliffe?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Dodona?
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe?
Yes.
All motions carry.
Like to move item 6 alone. Item 6 is a resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education gratefully accepts the donations listed below, and I will run down through them real quickly because I think it's important to recognize them. Donor Nick Boyle, donation of approximately $4,375 worth of cleats for the 2020 football season, the football team. Kiwanis Club of Sussex, donation of $250 to replenish the High Point Food Pantry. Donation from Harold Pello and Associates in the amount of approximately $768.49 for 10-player masks for the field hockey team. And then 3 donations from A Meal for a Meal to replenish the High Point Food Pantry in the amount of $5,000. The Zen Zone in the Media Center for $2,000, and the History Department's program of Stand Up Against Hate in the amount of $2,000. Also, the Schoolcraft Studios donation of $2,000 to cover shipment of yearbooks home, and Mrs. Leanne Smith donation of $100 worth of lacrosse sticks to the High Point lacrosse team. Making that motion, seeking a second on those items.
Second.
Item, sorry. Any discussion?
We discussed this earlier at a committee, but these people will receive a note of thanks from us, from Tina and the business office. Ms. Alsack.
Hey, thanks to all our donors. We greatly appreciate your support of High Point. And with that, I'd ask for a roll call, please.
Absolutely. Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
I'm going to say yes, but I don't know if I have to abstain because I'm voting on myself.
You can vote to say thanks.
Mr. Ancliffe?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe.
Yes.
Motion carried with a large thank you from all of us.
And I'd like to move the final item, number 7 in finance, is a recommendation that the Board of Education approves and authorizes the execution of the following tuition contracts between High Point Regional High School as a sending district and the following districts and related information. It is actually only one receiving district, High Point Regional High School, as one student, and the tuition cost is $20,817. For the 2020-2021 school year. So I'll make the motion on item 7. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on item 7? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Antcliffe,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Move on to the next action item, transportation. Mr. Caraza?
I'd like to move items 1 and 2 together. Number 1 recommends the approval of the execution of a joint transportation agreement for the 2020-21 school year as listed. Item number 2 recommends the approval and authorization of the execution of a second joint transportation agreement for the 2020-21 school year as listed. I make that motion. Do I get a second?
Second.
Does anybody wish to have any discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask for the roll call, please.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Antcliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Carazo,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
And finally, item number 3, it's recommended that the board approve the completed bus evacuation drill for 2020-2021 school year. Took place for cohort A on October 22nd of this year. Took place for cohort B on October 23rd of this year. And this would complete our first bus evacuation requirement for the present school year. I'd ask for a second.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Antcliffe,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Ms. Nugent,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Dr. Kehoe.
Yes.
Motion carried.
The next action item is long-term planning, and there's no items for discussion this month. Following action item is legal, and I believe there's no items for discussion this month and no updates necessary. Next action item is correspondence. We have not received any correspondence in the past month to discuss. Next item is miscellaneous. I just want to remind everybody the school board mandated training, and hopefully you're up to date in your training. You can check with Kathy Hallowell or Tina on whether you're up to date and what courses are available if you need some. Please, that's the only way we're going to keep our certificate or get and keep our certification. Going to move on to public comments. I'm going to see if there's any public comments. And the only public comment we received previously from Faith Healy, I read before. We have no additional public comments at this time. So I'm going to move on to non-committee board member reports or comments? Do we have any non-committee reports or comments?
Can I just make a definition clarification from my earlier discussion regarding COVID-related business?
Please.
I just want to differentiate so that everybody's clear the difference between a lockdown and ceasing in-person instruction and extracurricular activities. A lockdown is different. A lockdown means that no one comes to the building, and that would have to be a mandate from the state. A cessation of all in-person instruction means that students remain at home and are educated virtually, and staff are still reporting to the building as typically they do on Wednesdays already. So I just wanted to make sure there's an understanding that in-person instruction going all virtual is not a lockdown, and business is still done as usual. And a lockdown means that the staff and there's no one permitted in the building, and all education will be done remotely outside of the building. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ripley. Seeing no other non-committee board member reports or comments, I'm going to move on to other business. Mr. Pavlicek, if you would, other business.
Since our last meeting, we received one OPA request. It came from the Montague School. It was a request for all monthly tuition bills from the school year 2014 through the present time. This actually is at least the third time that this office has done that, but we did it again. But to ensure that we were completely accurate and included everything, it did take 6 hours of time, including my time, the Mrs. Heller's time, Mrs. Wenteljewski's time. That also the board attorney was involved to ensure that we answered it correctly because of potential firecrackers on this one. We made sure that we looked at everything, and we did respond within the 7 business days. Even though the executive order of March 20th of this year does allow us to have additional time, we did do it within the original stated 7 business days that it follows the OPA law.
Thank you very much. Final item is adjournment. Do we have a
Mr.
motion?
Keogh, Mr. Keogh, I'm sorry to interrupt. I apologize. I couldn't get my mute button off earlier with the comments part, and I didn't want to interrupt you when you moved on.
No, please.
With your indulgence, I just wanted to expand on Mr. Talamay's earlier comments and send my congratulations to Coach Liz Sunda of the cross country team. Not only did she achieve a personal milestone by winning her 150th meet as a coach, but she has coached over the most dominant boys and girls cross country team in North Jersey for approximately 7 years now. The boys, not only have they won 7 consecutive division titles, but they have been undefeated for that entire time. They only had 5 meets this year, but on normal average, they have at least 10 to 12 meets. So for that time, she's won almost 70 consecutive boys meets while winning those division titles. The girls have won 5 consecutive division titles and have been undefeated for that entire time. That is an impressive record, but having had the privilege of watching this team for the last 3 years, I think what's more impressive is the manner in which Coach Sunda and her kids accomplished this. They work tremendously as a team. They form a tight bond every year. They participate in team activities such as pasta nights and stuff of that nature, summer practices run by the kids. But the bonds that they form, and that really is impressive to watch, and it's rare nowadays in athletics. And it carries on into their meets in the fall as well. But I would indicate as well that in those 3 years, Coach Sunda works as hard as she has. She doesn't sit back on her laurels. She doesn't get complacent. It's hard to get kids to win for that long and to keep working as hard as they do. And it's it's really a testament to her. It starts with her, and she just instills that work ethic all the way down from the top runner, all the way down to the kid who comes in last on the team. They all work so hard. And it's just been a privilege, and it's a testament to her and to Coach Carter, who assists her. And I just wanted to add some additional recognition that, as Mr. Talamay had indicated earlier about her, but as somebody who's watched it for the past 3 years, it's an impressive program. And I congratulate her and the kids on their continued success. And it's just something as a community we should all be proud of.
Mr. Crosser, I'm glad you took the time to add that. That's wonderful. And I think what's important, as wonderful as the winning is, the extracurricular bonding and all, it means a lot to the students, which is what Dr. Ripley was saying, why it's so important to stay open if we can. So I'm glad you brought that up, and congratulations to Ms. Sunda and all those teams. With that, seeing nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a
Second.
second. We have a second, Mr. Graza. All
Yes,
in
sir.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing nobody opposed, I want to thank you, everybody, for a wonderful meeting. Have a great evening.